This happened really quickly after our first one. We had changed things up. This was supposed to be the first all-college meeting of the semester, and we snuck in another one on September 11th. So we have a fewer potential structured agenda items, but I hope that means there's more time for conversation. So before we begin, we just do a poll. How many people are going to root for the Red Sox? All right, and how many people are rooting for the evil empire? How many people don't care? We're not quite split. I think the Red Sox had it, and then the rest of it fight it up. So thank you. I do think, as a lifelong Red Sox fan, I do think it's always exciting, no matter how it turns out. I hate to say that, but for the Red Sox and the Yankees to play in this moment, and it never used to be able to happen until the wild card. So it's very exciting to see them pitted against each other, and to the evil empire people in the room. I'd love to say 4 nights in October, and you can throw that at me in a little bit, because that was magical in 2004. Anyway, I digress. So anyone have any burning issue, question, thing they want to get off they want to say before we get rolling into our more formal agenda? Anyone, is there anyone celebrating anything in the room? No? Is it Kelly's birthday? What?
Really? But we can sing now.
Okay. Then Cody. Okay. Okay, everyone take a piece of paper when it comes around and a pencil if you need it, because there'll be a little thing you're going to write later on in the not right. All right, Deb Cody.
Okay, so new employees. Okay, I'm going to use this. Okay. I want to recognize some new faces on campus, and I think Tony Buckman's here. Did I see Tony? Yes. Tony, director of not new to campus, but new to this position, so congratulations. And there are some other folks that are back on campus after having been away from us for a while, and that's community education and workforce development. So they're not like new faces, but they're new again faces. So Linda and Christine and Renee, and welcome them back to the campus. Kirsten, I don't know if she's here, but thank you for coming back. Thank you. I'm not sure if anybody else on my list is in attendance that you would recognize as a new employee, so I'll move on. Unless, am I missing someone? Who?
No, even like Jeff in the Patterson, did you say it?
Sure. So we have some new part-time building supervisors at Patterson, Grant Collingwood, Kyle Fury, and Jeff Moulton. So.
Jeff is.
I'm sorry?
Jeff is an alum.
Yeah, and Justin alum.
And also that Eric.
Yes, and Eric is acting director of rec services in Lauren's absence. So, anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
Is Michael here?
So we're welcoming Michael English to the campus, who will serve. We announced at the last meeting that we had someone else in that role who was really enjoying their retirement and discovered very quickly that retirement was a great thing. So Mark Bushy has decided to step back from serving as our interim director of safety and security, and we have Michael English, who is known, who is known to some of you through some other things, and we're really happy to have him, and he's doing a super job. So here's the other one. We tend to just introduce people who are actually sitting in the room, so that's not meant to be a slight to anyone else who is new but not here. Okay. The next item on our agenda is Jennifer Byrne talking about the new academic schedule.
So this is small. We do have copies on the back piano for people.
And I'm here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, that's fine. I have it too. For people who want it. The new schedule, which people in academic affairs are quite acquainted with, but it occurred to Laura wisely that maybe other people on the campus might be affected by this as well. Because we're going to have a new schedule, Offices are gonna be busy at different times. The maintainers may have to maintain at different times. The cafeteria will have different student flow, so we wanted to share that with the entire campus. And you may or may not know, if you're not in academic affairs, that previously we had a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule and a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. As part of the strategic planning engaged learning group, they decided to do some research on what would better serve our students, and the results were that our students prefer to have 2-day-a-week schedules. So with a lot of collaboration and planning, starting in January, we're rolling out the new schedule. And if you can look up here, if you sort of ignore Monday for 1 minute, the kind of core schedule is Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday, Wednesday. So students, Wednesday and Friday. It's hard to remember that. So Tuesday, Thursday, and Wednesday, Friday. So most students will take most of their classes on either Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday, or of course both if they're full-time students are taking more classes. Mondays are reserved for longer classes like labs. And in the event that a faculty works with their dean and makes the decision that there's a pedagogical reason to have a 3-day-a-week class, that may be adjusted for that. So there is some flexibility if it meets the needs of the students in an unusual way. So if those of you who are around notice that the flow of students is different in the spring, perhaps you can prepare a little bit and understand that this is what is going on. I did read in the Engaged Learning Task Force, and they talked about how we're going to do this, and then we're going to reflect on it and talk to students and faculty and look at the enrollment numbers and make sure that this is something that's helpful. So this is something that we're putting in place because we think it will be better for our students. If we learn that it is not, we will certainly reconsider. So are there any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
And Chuck is going to talk about a name change.
Hello, everyone. You know, when you're involved in a really long process, at some point, inevitably, there's going to be the point where someone says to you, well, when are you going to tell us about that? This is the moment we're going to tell you about that. So NEASC is our accreditation process. We are now halfway through the self-study process. Told you a lot about that last year. Basically, 90-ish people are working on looking at all different elements of the institution, reflecting on what's working, what we can continue to do, et cetera, et cetera. However, the way we tend to talk about that now needs to be changed, kind of, sort of, because NEASC is now referred to as NECHI. Go ahead and say it, NECHI. It's not a philosopher, it's not Nietzsche, it's NECHI, okay? Here's a little bit of why. So what we tend to call NEASC sort of never actually was NEASC. NEASC is not a figment of our collective imagination, it actually exists. But it's really an umbrella organization that has multiple commissions under it. The Commission on Public Schools, the Commission on Independent Schools, Commission on International Education. Really what we were always interacting with was something called the Commission on Institutions of Higher Education, or talk about something that has absolutely no zing to it, right? So for various reasons over the last 2 years, the Commission on, I still have to read it, Commission on Institutions of Higher Education, CIHE, of NEASC, has essentially decided to decouple from the umbrella organization and be a standalone version that is working with the U.S. Department of Education. So now, one more time, NECHI, which stands for New England Commission of Higher Education. So what does this actually mean for us? For the majority of us, it doesn't really mean all that much. It means something for Jonah. and the marketing department, lucky you, because one of the things that we do have to do is go through and change all references to NEAS on our website and on our publications to the new thing, NECHI, with language. If you thought this has been elegant so far, wait till you see this. That basically looks something along these lines, and I forward this information to Jonah, so now he has the joy of making those changes. Well, his team has the joy of making those changes, right? So our college is accredited by the New England Commission of Higher Education, formerly known as the UREA. I don't want to know. The one other office that it really affects directly is our financial aid office, because the reason this really matters, the reason why the accreditation process really matters at all, is that this is how our students have access to their financial aid. So the US DOE, because I want to say lots of letters today, the Department of Education does no longer recognizes CIHE of NEAS. They now recognize NECHI. So for the folks in the financial aid office, there's an updating process that needs to happen. For the rest of us, it really isn't going to matter all that much. I can tell you that as Margaret and I are co-leading this effort, I'm still going to say NEAS because it just sounds so much better. NEAS can be a verb. You are NEASking. I'm not NECHIing. I'm sorry, I'm not. But as we talk about it, we really should make an effort in formal communication to use the new name because names are important after all. And I think, unless you can think of anything else that we should say. So anyway, it's not just a change in name only, but it's effectively a change in name only, except for the spots where it really matters, and then it's basically just a matter of getting it right. I hesitate to ask any questions because someone's going to say, why did they do that? My office is Melville 428. Come by, I'll give you the long version. Okay. But if anyone does have any questions other than the big one. All right, thank you. I wanted to put an umbrella. That's what I came down to.
I wanted to take a moment before I introduce Jonah to talk about something to remind everyone that if you've not already, please register or sign up. It's in your best interest for the emergency notification system. So that, and I said this yesterday, and someone said, is it going to snow tomorrow? I said, but it will snow eventually, and that is the fastest way to know what is going on. So I encourage you, if you've not done so already, to update or go in, and if you're in whatever you're set at, and everyone is by default gets an email notification if we close, but if you want to get a text or have your home phone number be the contact, then please go in and either set yourself up or update your emergency notification system. Jonah?
On this topic?
No.
Room requests and usage?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Is that me?
Oh, okay.
I'll talk about it if you want.
No.
You want me to? Okay, I'll do it real quick.
Read your scoop. It's in there. No, so the opportunity for us to ensure that when you do a room request, you book your stuff in Astra. I'm speaking on behalf of the facilities use group. If you're in the group, please raise your hand. We do things behind the scenes that make your lives easier, but you have to make our lives easier as well. So if you're in Astra, make sure you book your space. If you haven't booked your space, don't use that room, please. And also, if you need a setup, make sure you use the facilities use form. I've attached it in yesterday's scoop. Make sure you fill it all out, and then email anybody who it calls out the email if you need to ensure you get what you need. And if you don't, then I'm gonna tell Tammy. So that's all. Oh yeah, and when you find the way you find a room, put it back that way. Period. So that's all. Thanks, guys.
I always think it's nice to understand why people are making those requests, and one of the issues we've discovered is, and it's great that people suddenly have a need to meet, and they grab an empty room and they go to meet, and then our facilities team needs to go set it up, but they're uncomfortable going in and telling them to leave that space so that they can do the setup. So we bumped into some problems, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about this, where it was really difficult for them to get the setup done in time for the group that had actually requested it. And also we have people who have an expectation, and our facilities team set something up, and people use the room in the meantime, and when that group comes in expecting that setup, they find something very different. So that is why we're asking you to do those things. We're a small, lean team here, and we all need to just pitch in and help when we're trying to our facilities team is great about accommodating, so if you requested it, they'll make sure the setup is there. But if you happen to use a space and need to adapt it, we're just asking you to help get it back into the right place. Any questions about that? So I want to go off schedule. What is our? All right, yeah. Parking, someone asked if I would just give a brief update on where things stand, and one of the questions I was gonna read later on from someone is, so this came through the suggestion box. Please consider leaving parking as open except for special permit and handicapped, of course. No need to purchase and distribute parking stickers. We are in the middle of, we have ASME coming soon, and we will be talking to them, and then with them CCC, to discuss what the new parking plan will be. I've talked about it at the last meeting, so I won't spend a lot of time unless people have some specific questions. But our intention at this moment is to negotiate giving everyone a choice of how they'll park. And if you choose to stay in the parking lot that is reserved for faculty and staff, there'll be a way to do that. If you'd like to go into open parking and be able to pick your parking from wherever, and I already set aside some parking spaces that are now open, and you see them especially along East Road. You will all be surveyed once this is all set to identify which way you want to do your parking, if you want to stay in reserved or if you want to go to open parking. And then we'll, based on the input we get from you and your self-identifying where you intend to park, we'll be freeing up potentially some spaces if people opt for that. You will recall, if you are a regular attendee of these meetings, that we spent a lot of time on this issue last year. There was a task force made up of a number of you who looked at this. You came back with the recommendation, that task force, which was to open up and have no reserved parking whatsoever. Just make this campus open parking for everyone, except for the spaces we're legally required to have set aside for accessible spaces. And there was some conversation at this meeting about, for people hearing it for the first time, saying, I want to have would feel more comfortable having reserved parking for faculty and staff. So we've come up with this option, and we'll have our conversations with the unions and then put this out and let you self-identify what you want, and we'll see what it turns out. The whole campus may opt to be in open parking, or very few people may opt to be in open parking, but we'll find out soon enough. Does anyone have any specific questions about parking and where it stands? Yes?
When you survey to find out where we want to be, will there be a map of what those spots are going to be?
So Jennifer asked if when we survey, will there be a map that shows you what all the parking options are? And as part of the proposal, there'll be a map that shows the way it is now and a potential of the way it could be. When we met, I think with the Senate at one point, we gave a detailed map with where we saw things now and where we saw things, how it could work if, say, 20 people who park on East Road now in reserved faculty and staff opted to not do that anymore. What would that look like? So we will give you those and show you how it could look depending on what people opt to do. And I know, how many people are parking on the East Road open parking right now where you get, so it's worked out really well because I think we freed up over 30 spaces roundabout, which are pretty convenient. Sherry Scher wanted us to go to open parking because she wants all of us to get more steps in. She thought we should park at Patterson and walk up, and we think she should park up here in the north lot and walk down. So there's that option. Does anyone have any other? Yes?
When do the parking rules end?
When do the
At
parking
what
rules
time
end?
of the day?
Oh, so that's gonna be part of the proposal. I'll be honest, I think my proposal will probably be 2 o'clock that the parking rules end.
Okay.
And that would, because pretty much most people are here by then, and if they're not, the parking spaces are turning over based on people's schedules and flexible schedules. So I'm suggesting Monday through Friday from 7 to 2, the parking spaces would be reserved as they are. If they stay that way, the signs would be updated to reflect that. But that'll be in the proposal, that'll come out to everyone. We'll still have one more conversation about it. It's not gonna be final. So, any other questions, issues, concerns, or thoughts? Joe, you just flipping the pen, or do you have a?
Yeah, no, I'm just getting my exercise.
Your Fitbit might be recording.
Fit what?
Okay, thanks, Kim. Now,
Me again.
sorry.
Okay. I will speak slower. I only have 264 ounces of coffee, which mathematically is like 1,000. I'm an English major. Hi everyone, my name is Jonah Sykes, and behind me is Flippy the mascot. No, I'm kidding, it doesn't have a name. So, but that's what this is all about. So we have this mascot and we need to give it a name. So the intention is that we want this to be an opportunity for every single human being who wants to submit names for our mascot. So it's out and about. We have some work studies who are taking care of this for us, and it's been fantastic, but we don't have a name for it, so it's just the Falcon. I'm happy to report that 85% of students surveyed do know that our mascot is a falcon. One thought it was an earthworm, and one thought it was a giant cat. So, but it is, they do know what it is, so that's great. So if you go to our website, go to berkshirecc.edu/mascot, you will see a form you can fill out to submit your recommendations for a name, and then why you recommend that name. And if anybody wants to join me on a small committee to go through all of the submissions, we will then find which ones are our favorites, and then we will put those out again, and we'll figure out what the name of it will be. We will announce the name of the mascot at our basketball home opener, which I don't know when that is off the top of my head, but it's the first or second weekend of December. So that's that. So if you want to submit, go to /mascot on our website and send us what your names are, and we'll, if you want to join me on a committee to go through those, just let me know. Any questions, comments, concerns, considerations, queries? Okay, thanks. Jonathan, no.
So, everyone, and if you don't have one, raise your hand. Let me step back for a second. How many people are currently involved in NEAS, NETCHI, and one of the 9 standards, working on the project in any way in this room? So, you're all very busy. One of the things that we realized as we started to think about this process is we should be having a reflective exercise every year about our mission. Is our mission statement actually capturing where we think we are? Does it need to change? Does it need to be? It needs to be looked at every year, and we probably haven't been as good about that as we should. So we wanted to take a moment here to ask you each to think about 3 or 4 words or phrases that you feel best capture our mission at Berkshire Community College. What should we be doing? What are we doing? What is it? I don't want to put ideas in your head, but if you would just take a few minutes and write, nothing deep, if you don't have to take any time, just sort of what are the 3 or 4 words or phrases that come top of mind when you think about Berkshire Community College? Yes, no?
So are you saying that these are 4 words or phrases that we think should be our mission based on what we do and what we aspire to do, or what a reflection on what our mission already is? Which might be the same thing, but they might be different.
I think you could put, if you want to put aspirational, you could on your thing and say these are aspirational for our mission, and these are what I think we're doing now. That would be great.
So, okay, so.
Does that help?
Like in general, are you looking for feedback that is like, this is what we do and this is what we're about / should be about, or are we actually thinking about the mission and reflecting on it?
What would you think our mission should be
Okay.
as Berkshire Community College?
That is helpful.
What our mission should be as Berkshire Community College, 3 or 4 words or phrases that best capture that, and we'll do a word cloud and share that with everyone. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. If you want to just hand them to either end of the aisle, then we'll collect. Okay. So had a couple of submissions
we're sending it
in the
that way.
suggestion box. I read one, which was about parking. Someone else, kind of happy you're here, Kevin, someone else asked about providing soft music in the caf for people to listen to. So I think that probably needs a little bit of discussion, but we can explore that, I think. And the final thing, which I hadn't realized, and I think this happened because we took some of our formerly male restrooms and converted them into unisex, and there are not sanitary napkin disposal bins in those, so thank you to whoever notified us of that, and I pass it on to the facilities, and that will be addressed. Sorry about that. And I wanted to mention that we have a good representation today from our LPN and ADM program. We submitted our our Mass-born report that was due on September 30th. We submitted it a few days early. And extraordinary amount of work on behalf of our faculty, on Tamara McCandless, Chris Aylesworth, Jennifer Byrne. A number of people were really engaged in that work. Margaret Stevenson worked incredibly hard with our faculty, and it was a yeoman's work on everyone's behalf, and we're very grateful. That people ask, well, what happens next? Well, ACEN, the National Accrediting Group, are coming at the end of October. And Mass-born has decided to tag along on that visit, so they'll be here at the same time. I think it's the 24th through the 23rd, 24th, and 25th that they'll be here. Mass-born is not going to move on the materials we submitted them until at least after that. We have another submission due in January, and I'm not sure I forgot to ask if we were trying to target everything at once, but I don't know if we have another report that we'll be sending in January. So it could be not until March that the board of Mass-born actually takes our report under advisement. We had to have it in, and I'm sure they're reviewing it, but we may not hear anything right away. But we will, of course, keep you all posted, and again, thank you to all of those who are involved in that. We are about to finalize an interim director of nursing. We're just dotting our I's and crossing our T's, and so we should in the next day or so, I hope, be announcing who that person will be. And I think that's it at the moment on nursing. Tom Tiny, do you want to take a moment and talk about the Natural History Conference? And we're using the microphone because Pam Curran taught us all that the greatest form of disability is actually hearing impairment, and it's really hard for people to hear when we aren't magnifying our voice.
What'd you say? 6 years ago, one of the great biologists from Berkshire County died, and at his memorial service, which was held at the historic barn at Pleasant Valley Sanctuary, 100 people showed up to pay their respects and tell stories about him. Some of those stories are to be left there. However, it became clear that everybody was still interested in this, and we decided then and there to develop an annual conference on Berkshire natural history. And we held the very first one down in Sheffield at the Berkshire School. The second one was up at MCLA, and the third was here at BCC just this past year. We're now going back to the to our first spot for our fourth year. It's going to be on November 17th. There's a bunch of speakers, mostly from the Berkshires, who are, each one of them could be a fabulous forum speaker, and so your students might be very interested in coming to this. This year it's November 17th, and we'll be working with Jonah and others to get the word out. We already have a website. The folks who used to be at Conti have been incredibly helpful with doing all the registrations for us. Laura's been instrumental. Charlie have been a major part of this. In fact, Charlie is the MC for the day, which is good because nobody argues when he tells them to get off the stage. Tim Flanagan's been part of it, and Joe actually, and a couple of other folks have been here. We could use more help for sure if you would like to get on board. We need a bunch of people. We get about 175 people to come to this every year, and more students are coming to it, which is really quite fun. And this year, the speakers are doing everything. The topics are everything from bears in your backyard to the rarest animal in New England, a tiny little turtle only found in southern Berkshire County. There's 2 locations for this turtle, and the Nature Conservancy people and the state biologists have been working on this for 30 years. It's one of the great critters of all time. But the real highlight was this guy who clearly has no life. He was doing an entire talk on animals that live between the upper and lower levels of a leaf. He came out to Williamstown last week to survey these leaf miner insects and found a brand new species undescribed to science. Last month, he helped us down in Connecticut Valley and found a new genus undescribed. This guy needs help, and his photographs of these little tiny things, which are abundant here on campus and everywhere, are actually marvelous. So I'd like you all to come, certainly encourage your students, and we'll be getting more word out as soon as we can. Gina has also been a big part of this, and we appreciate it. If you have any questions, just see us or any of the people I just mentioned. Thank you.
We do give forum credit, so.
Oh yes, forum credit available.
Thank you. A couple of other quick events. The Harvest Run, which is a partnership with Berkshire Healthcare Systems and Berkshire Community College Foundation, and it supports our nursing program, will happen on Saturday, October 20th. We had 3 major sponsors, so the kids portion of that race is now free. We need you to pre-register if your kids want to come out. We're also making it free to high school racers to get them out and on our campus. And we are thrilled so far with the support we've already received. We're far exceeding what we've done in the past in fundraising on that. Is that true, Jen? Yes. The other thing that happens at that event, which is really a lot of fun, is Berkshire Healthcare System. Each of the ones in Berkshire County, they actually have a plan all year. They have a competition around food, and they decorate a booth, and you can taste their food. But they put together a menu, and I think, what is it this year, pumpkin? Do you know?
Oh, yes, Halloween themed.
Oh, Halloween themed this year.
Yes.
And they have to use pumpkin in one of the foods that they prepare. It's really wonderful, and it's all free, and it's a great event to showcase what goes on in the county. So if you're available, we'd love to see you and support our nursing program. Also, 2 weeks from today, at the same time as we started, is our convocation. And obviously, our faculty are there in force, and it's the only other time we don our regalia in an official way is at convocation. And I would encourage, I saw Laura, do we provide the list of the students who are gonna be honored at convocation?
I already sent that.
Great, so if you have students in your class who are gonna be honored as part of convocation, and you don't have to embarrass them in front of their peers, but let them know how proud you are that they are being recognized for this. These are our honors students, and encourage them to attend, because Laura found out, and we all found out, that for a lot of students and their families, they didn't know what convocation meant. They received an invitation to something that they didn't understand, and they didn't come. So we're really trying to raise the understanding and awareness of this event and encourage people to be in attendance. They receive a medallion to signify their honor status, so it's a pretty big deal and it's a pretty special event. And are we releasing who our keynote is at that event? Or is it a surprise?
No, I don't think it's a surprise, it's Lois Cooper.
Lois Cooper will be giving the keynote at that event. So I hope if you're available, anyone on the campus would come and celebrate with our students on 2 weeks from today, which is the 18th.
We have 120 students that were eligible.
So 120 students are eligible have been invited to attend convocation, and it means they have shown incredible academic acumen in your classrooms. So I hope that you'll be there. Anyone else could be there, but you'll encourage our students to be there. That's it for the things I wanted to share. Does anyone have any other event they want to share? Oh, sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Charles. Thank you, Jonah. So there's a couple of events that we really need your help promoting to our students that we're doing. So for those of you who have engaged their classrooms in service learning, tomorrow is the deadline for sign up. So that means your students should have their site supervisor sign their project agreement form, and then also they should have you sign it and go over their learning outcomes and have that into me by the end of the day tomorrow. Another thing I wanted to promote, in collaboration with the Women's Center, we're hosting the E3 conference in the Student Engagement Center. This year we're bringing out 2 speakers, Roberta McCullough-Dews, who's the executive administrator for Mayor Linda Tyre, and then also Danielle Pellerin, who formerly of One Berkshire is now an entrepreneur. They're going to talk about their experience in navigating career management. This is an open invitation to regardless of gender. But we really want to we really encourage you to encourage maybe students that you see that may have a spark for leadership or need a push for leadership to come and then hear these stories. Because I think it'd be great for them to interact with some leaders in the town to get that spark to do more, to be better, and to achieve and reach higher. Hear some stories about people in this region that are doing well. And then lastly, the day before convocation, we're holding our first annual fall career fair in the Connector. Currently, we've met a little over halfway through our goal of registered employers. We're still working on that. But in order to get them to continue to come back, we need our students there. And one thing I've learned in my 2 years of working here is that students don't really move without faculty push. So if you can encourage your students to go to the career fair, even if they're not looking for a job today, they can start developing those relationships that'll help them tomorrow. So just kind of push them to go to the career fair. Working with Beth Wallace to offer form credit with this as well. So really, if they just talk to 3 employers at the event, have them stamp their passport, which is basically on the back of their program, then they will receive form credit for attending. So we really encourage you to encourage your students to come out and go to the career fair October 17th from 10 to 2 in the Connector. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Any questions? Kari?
Hi.
So I just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to have an addiction recovery conference here at BCC. It's going to be on Thursday, November 29th. And so we're going to be having a panel with Dr. Jenny Michaels. We're going to have Sheriff Bowler. We're having Jennifer Kimball from the Berkshire Opioid Prevention Collaborative. We're having Shannon McCarthy from CSS and McGee. We're having a gentleman with years of recovery experience, and then we're also having breakout sessions with Spectrum Health, with Tapestry talking about needle exchange, and Pam Coley-McCann is going to be focusing on addiction and trauma. And so it's going basically from 8 in the morning until about 1:15, and we're going to be having lunch, and so it's going to be a really important event. So I just want to let you know about that. And also the incubator proposal for the faculty staff component of mentoring here at BCC was approved, so I'm really happy about that. So mentoring at BCC is going to be including a component where faculty and staff can mentor students. And so if you're interested in being a mentor, please be in touch with me directly and I'll get you started. We already have 15 mentors that have stepped up from our faculty and staff. That's it.
Thank you very much. And I would also mention, if Beth is here, that at the Board of Trustees meeting the other night, Beth shared with the board that 27 of 30 days this past month, the month of September, the turf field was booked and used, much by outside organizations. Sometimes 2 and 3 and 4 groups a day were using the field. We're finding that so quickly after a rainstorm, the rain is gone and it's usable. They have also just this week opened it up from 11 to 2 every day, Monday through Friday, for open use for our students and any of you who want to go down there, and some people might want to run around it when it's wet. The other thing is we need 3 consecutive days of no rain to put down the sod on the second field and on some other spaces. So right now it's a bit muddy down there, but that will be taken care of as soon as we have 3 consecutive no rain work days. So, anything else? Yes, Matt?
Just very quickly, if you notice any students in your classes that are doing something really exceptional, great project, something really cool, encourage them to sign up for I'm sitting on my thing, it's weird. Encourage them to, or send us their names and encourage them to participate in the Scholars Conference. So if you can send their name and email address to Jeremy or myself, we can begin to communicate with them. We always have a little info session in the middle of November, so it's helpful for them to show up for that. Quite a few of you have come up to me in the halls and like, I have someone. So that's really awesome. So keep thinking about who you might nominate for this as the semester progresses. And if you remember someone from last semester that you worked with, that had a great project, you can nominate them as well.
On October 16th, we're going to be having a forum, and it's called A View from the Inside, and it's students with disabilities talking about trying to dispel some of the myths that seem to go on with students. One of the things as we were meeting and we were talking together is one thing that the four of them had in common is all through school they were bullied because of their disability, even those students who you couldn't tell by looking at them that they had a disability. The other thing that they had in common in talking with them is this is a place where for the first time in their lives they feel comfortable and welcomed and held accountable to their learning. So bravo for all of you. And the reason why we're really starting to focus on the students with disabilities and speaking up, it's going to be a fully student-run panel. The facilitator is a student here. She's not one of my students, but she's a parent of a student with a disability. So she comes with different perspectives. But one of the reasons why I want to bring this up, and I have the students, we chose the students we did, is because they're academic scholars, they're academic ambassadors, they're involved in PTK, because when I was working with Jeremy, I keep giving Jeremy a lot of credit lately. He says everywhere he goes, people say it, but I can't help it because I'm an English major, Jonah, and numbers have never been a thing for me, and he's taught me how to look at numbers and look at my numbers and population differently. And one thing that we get a lot of is, oh, Pam, that must be one of your students. I'm having an issue with this student, it must be one of yours. And so I took on like, oh yeah, my students, they take a lot of your time, they are a lot of your effort and having to teach in different ways. But one thing I noticed is I wanted to find a different way to look at my students. And indeed, the students who come to our office, they tend to be those students who need a lot of support, and those are the ones that you tend to see. There are few of them though. Actually, most of my students are those PTK students. So Jeremy helped me to look at the numbers differently. And so my goal this year is to raise awareness on campus that my students are our students. Our graduation rates are higher than the college in general. Our PTK induction are higher than the college in general. Our academic scholarship presenters are higher than the college in general. In every single category, students with disabilities that receive support through my office are represented at a much higher level than the college in general. And thanks to Jeremy for helping me find that, because it just confirms what I always believe, that with all the changes and all of the new issues that students are bringing, it's so easy to get overwhelmed and focused on just that handful of students who take so much of our time. But really, we have amazing students on our campus, including and especially our students with disabilities. So I hope that you will let your classes know about this forum, that you will come and hear it straight from the students themselves, what they've been able to accomplish in their lives, and the directions that they're going. We have one that's going to be a doctor, one that's going to be, she's going to major in theater and be a counselor, one is going to be a therapist, and the other one is still undecided. But pretty amazing.
Thank you. Is that October 16th or November 16th?
October 6th.
October, so next week, right?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
Sorry, 2 weeks. And I would just say I went to when you did this a few years ago, and it was probably one of the more powerful forums I ever attended, to hear the students tell their stories and to understand. And you had a quadriplegic, you had spectrum, you had all kinds of people who were bringing some of us to tears in the room that day about their backstories. So it's a very moving session. Thank you.
And this year we'll have someone who is blind, someone who is deaf, someone who has a learning someone who is blind, legally blind, someone who is deaf, someone who has a diagnosed learning disability, and someone with a mental illness. And then, of course, the parent.
Thank you. Anything else anyone wants to share? Yes? No?
Super fast. I just want to let you know that for some of our exceptional students who may be exceptional in some ways, but perhaps not so exceptional when it comes to computer skills or figuring out how to start a paper, been working with Christian Tenzar in what we are calling the first of a series of workshops, Digital Commons Writing Center mashup. And this first one is focused on really basic computer skills. So our target audience for this event is
the student who hits the space bar 10 times to indent a paragraph, or who isn't sure how to save their work in a way where they'll be able to access it again later, or who has no idea, how to get started on a paper. So not necessarily, students who are currently enrolled in English classes, but students who are having to do writing for any of your classes. So that event is this coming Tuesday at 12:15 to 1:15 in K210. You'll see posters up on campus. They're black and white. There's like a giant ancient computer picture in the middle. And so that's it. So if you know of particular students who struggle with computer stuff or with writing stuff, send them our way. And forum credit is available for that as well.
Thank you, Nell. Anything else? We have, yes, Rachel. Good to have you back.
Hi guys, I'm Rachel Deschamps. I work in financial services, which is fancy for half of the time in financial aid and half of the time in student billing. About a month ago, my family suffered a devastating house fire, and I just wanted to take the time to thank you guys for all of your support. It's been equally as overwhelming in the most wonderful way, and we really appreciate it.
So we have a little bit of time. We have 12 or 13 minutes. If there are some particular issues you'd like to talk about while we have people sitting in this room, if there's something on your mind, if there's something you think we should discuss, it doesn't have to be something that I can answer. It can be something you would like the whole group to discuss. Any kinds of issues this came out as people felt there wasn't an opportunity to discuss issues. We're going to do a series of getting back into the 5-person roundtables, so if this is not your kind of venue to have these conversations, don't worry, there'll be other opportunities. But if there is something you would feel comfortable raising with this group and saying, hey, could we spend 5 or 7 minutes or at least get something started that we want to delve more deeply into, we'd be happy to do that. Chuck.
Just real quickly, could you talk about how the information about the new schedule and the new parking is being disseminated to students, so how they are finding out about this as well?
So I would have to ask if anyone in the room knows how we're disseminating it to students.
So Academic Affairs has been working with Beth's office to make sure that all students understand. We're also spreading it in very informal ways, and we encourage you to do so as well. Did you have a forum on it?
No, we were thinking about rolling it out as best we can before pre-reg, so that when you all meet with your students during that advising time, that you could explain it to them. So we'll send the email, and it'll be really nice and gentle, and this is so exciting, and then if they have questions, you can follow up with that at your time that you meet with your students.
Yeah, so just, we're advertising it as a positive thing that was based on student feedback, and the feedback that I've gotten from students has been positive.
Also, once we've come up with a plan, I don't want to surprise anyone in marketing, but we will be talking to marketing about things like the My BCC app and getting it on Facebook and just in general information that way. One of the ways that students really look at their information.
Thank you. And similarly, we'll be doing something once we get the parking piece finalized. We have been informally spreading the word to students that they're welcome on East Road if they come in the morning and spot a space that is not so marked to describe that space. But we'll get that out there. We're just trying to get it finalized so that it's clear and we're not, the signs aren't moving all the time and they can't figure out how does this work. So I'll share this. We are talking about Ollie has their classes. Did we talk about this at the last All-College Meeting? Okay, all right. Anything else? Any other issue? Anything people would like to see us talk about or would like to engage the campus in, or people who are here in a conversation about something on your mind? Yes, Pam?
I've just been hearing people talk about the field administration building and that there's going to be renovations. And initially, we saw the plans for the first floor, but apparently, unless this is rumor and it's not true, but that both the upstairs and downstairs have to be renovated.
Part of that is true. When we submitted our proposal to do the ground floor of fields for our one-stop, which we were funded for, and there were only 6 projects funded, we were very fortunate. it turned out that we were renovating enough space, you'll appreciate this, enough space on the first floor that it triggered the whole building has to be ADA accessible. So there won't be renovations of offices, but there may be doors that have to be widened. We may have to make sure the restrooms upstairs have to be accessible. We have them on one end. It might be that we have to, I think actually the restrooms are not accessible on the second floor of Fields. So there's gonna be some renovation there. So it's all about accessibility on the second floor of Field because we triggered that requirement by renovating so much of the first floor. So no palatial suites on the second floor of Field. It's strictly about what needs to be done to make sure that we're ADA compliant as part of this bigger project. We don't have timing yet on, we have goals for timing. We're just finalizing some of the pieces of that project. There's a group that meets every other week, I think, on the Field renovation project, and there's a team working on when we vacate and create swing space from the ground floor of Field and we go someplace else, how is that all gonna work? So there's a group that are meeting about that, there's a group on the design, there's a group on the project itself, and all the documents that have to go out on that, so. Yes?
On the topic of accessibility, does anyone know when the library elevator is going to be fixed?
So I was unaware the library elevator is not working. How long has the library elevator been out?
All week.
So it's not been working this week, and it's Thursday. We will follow up on that. Sorry.
Dave was on the roof yesterday with the elevator people.
Okay,
So it's
so I'm hearing Dave was on the roof yesterday, but we'll find out and get an update up to the campus. So thank you for letting us know. Other things, other topics that you think we should be talking about as a campus? Other issues that you think would benefit by conversation or rumors that are out there, like as Pam said, that there's gonna be a renovation of the whole field, it's really the first floor, but other things, anything bothering anyone? I'm gonna wait just another minute so that if someone is just sitting there, like, I just need a push. Nothing? Well, yes, see?
One question, I just wondering when we have a block schedule for advising, we were just wondering when that's gonna be redesigned.
The block, the paper?
Yeah.
Paper schedule? Yeah. So it's probably, so the question was, we have a paper block schedule that we use for faculty who are provided to students so that they can sketch out what their schedule would look like. Are we working on an update to that? I don't know if you're doing it.
We have a meeting with Student Affairs Group next week, I believe, and
Okay.
so that's on the agenda to talk about to get that taken care of, yes.
Yeah, we used that for the master schedule, didn't we?
Yeah, we
Creating
use it for
master
several
schedule.
things, so we will update that.
Okay. Yes.
Maybe you've already done this, I just don't recall, have we had an enrollment update and budget update like where we're at? I don't recall.
I believe we did it at our last All College meeting, but we'll do one at the next one, or do you want to talk about it now? Put you on the spot.
I think I did one at the last All College meeting for where we were. The next big date in terms of enrollment is 30th day numbers, and I'm looking at Jeremy or Margaret. I don't know exactly when 30th day is. Neither do they. So we probably should wait until we have the 30th day is those are our official numbers. That's what we report to the state and to iPads and to AIRS. November 15th. October 15th. So we can provide. I can't speak to budget, nor do you want me to.
Another English major.
I would say on budget, we've just brought the final budget, so those of you who pay attention to these kind of things, we propose a budget in the spring and we bring it back in October because the state appropriation is then set, we know what that's gonna be, and usually that can go into July or August before that's set, and we also have our enrollment numbers. So we did see a downtick by more than we had projected, and we have made appropriate adjustments, which would be, I don't think anybody here would be impacted the way we are handling this, so, but we'll give you more details. John's not here today, or we would give you more details right now, but we'll do that at our next meeting, provide a budget update. And we're doing budget work this fall. Our goal is to bring the draft budget to the board by March. So we'll be ahead of the game and it will help us all do better planning. Anything else? Yes, Jen?
Thank you. So this is just a little anecdotal story. I have my students work in groups and then I have them in labs, so I have ample opportunity to learn their names. And I had one student that I called him the wrong name, and I apologized profusely. And he's like, that's okay, at least you try. And then what he said next was, most of my teachers don't know my name. So I know the very first day, Ellen really supports and says, please, on that first week, go out and learn the 3 students' names, make that connection. Just please, can we keep it going? Like, let them feel like somebody knows who they are and knows that they're here and knows and that they feel supported. Because this is a student that I know I've had him for 2 years now. He came back to my class. He got to do it again, but which means I shouldn't mess up his name. Because I have 2 of them, so I get them mixed up. So he's been here for a while, and he was feeling like nobody else knows who he is. So I just wanted to say, please try. Thanks. I know you do try, but try more.
Thank you, Jennifer. We know that's one of the key modes of potential student success is when people know their names and can call them by their names, and they can identify 3 people who know their names, they tend to stay. So that's why that's so important. Anything else, any other issue you think we should talk about as a campus community while we're sitting here today? I don't want to put people on the spot. And you know, when we put out that the meeting is coming, you can submit things that you want to have discussed at these meetings. And I promise next time we'll put the agenda out ahead. I don't know that we did this time. No, I'm sorry about that. This came up so quickly. Anything else for the good of the group? Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming today.